Hello everyone. Today we are going to rescue ourselves from Terra Firma. The first thing we are going to do is start to collect some rocks. And we are marking where we found the coolest ones, so that we might be able to find more of the same kind later on. Next, we are going to smash some of them until we get something that resembles an axe head. And we attach a stick to it. With our newly acquired axe, we are going to chop down some trees to gather some wood. We are going to use that wood to make our shelter for the night. We must use wood because here even dirt is worse than vanilla gravel. Before going to sleep, we should drink some water, have a snack, and do some inventory management. It is now getting dark, so I think it's time to go inside and read some lore. While waiting for the next day, we shall make some basic stone tools, like a shovel, a hoe and a pair of knives. It is now day, so it's time to go outside, chop some more trees, gather some straw, and start a farm. Next we shall do some more room into our house. And we shall have a fire pit for the next night. We are going to use that fire to cook some meat we hunted. It is going to take some time, but we want to keep our eyes on it because we don't want it to get burned. We are getting it out of the fire as soon as it gets to medium rare. And thus we have acquired some proteins to keep our diet balanced. We have to wait for it to cool down before eating it though. One more thing we can do without fire is torches, which will only last for 2 days. They expire exactly as food. The next task is pottery. So, let's start by molding it. Next, we place our molds into a hole in the ground. We cover with straw, cap it with wood and then pitch it on fire. And we wait for some time for it to turn into ceramic, which we will then collect. The first use we have for these things is as a storage since we don't have chests yet. Next we are going to use the vessels to make some tools. We start by filling them with copper and tin with a ration of 9:1. We place them under fire for some time to melt down the nuggets into molten metal. Once the fire is out, we quickly retrieve the jars before the metal solidifies. And it appears that Gregtech nuggets don't work in this procedure. So we shall use the only jar that worked to make a saw blade. Which we then finish into a working saw that can make lumber. Next, we gather some more copper, this time by sifting some sand on the beach. We quickly melt it down and this time we are going to make a pair of pickaxes. Now, we can use these to mine stone, however there is a catch: the stone we breaks without pick turns into pebbles. To obtain cobblestone, we have to separate one block of stone from the surrounding blocks, so that it drops as a single piece. And, with 2 pieces, we can finally have a crafting table. Then we proceed into making a soft mallet, which can be used to finally obtain chests to have a proper storage. After swapping our extinguished torch, we can finally decide where to place out chests and appreciate them. Now it is a good time for opening some loot bags. One interesting thing we have found is a Prospector Pick. We can use it to locate mineral deposits, so that we won't have to rely only on the surface rocks. And, once we have found some copper, we can start digging for it. Digging here is kinda difficult, since even solid rock can fall over your head. So we started making some support structure that will hold the rock around it. Now we can safely mine all of that ores, even if it doesn't feel that safe anymore. Anyways, we shall put the newly acquired materials in a vessel and heat them up. And we shall also put down some timber, cover it with dirt and pitch it on fire to make some charcoal. After 10 hours, we can collect the result. We use it to make a forge. And we also need an anvil. After all of that time, the copper we melted down a long time ago solidified, so we have to fire it again. Then we pour the liquid into some ingot molds. And we wait for it to cool down so that we can get the ingots out of the molds. By the time we figure out how to use an anvil, our ingots cooled down too much to be welded, so we have to heat them back up inside our forge. And finally, we can weld 2 ingots together. We shall use them to craft a better anvil. And it appears that it is too heavy and we can't move with it in our inventory. But we can have it on our shoulder. Next we start working some bronze. We take it out of the molds as soon as it solidifies to not lose time in which it is workable. We quickly weld 2 ingots and start working on a bronze plate. Then we start hitting it non-stop to see if we can get it down into a plate shape. However, it took so many tries that the material cooled down too much and it can no longer be worked. So we quickly read our instruction book to see how to properly hammer down bronze into a plate. We then take out 2 more ingots and try again. And we finally managed to get our plate. And, once we finally understood the proper way of metal forging, we go the 3rd try effortlessly. And thus we have acquired a file. Next we made some more plates for a wrench and future uses. Then we shall make some basic stuff that never fails to be in a mod pack, like a railcraft coke oven. And some stuff that we are going to need that has some interesting process to follow. For example, let's make some leather. We first have to fill some barrels with water and dissolve into them some flux to obtain some lime water. We then seal it with some hides we got from mobs. Next we scrap the so prepared hides. We wash away the scraps. And finally we put them in some tanning to finish the process. It took us many days, but we finally have leather. Making paper had a similar setup. We first dissolved some ashes to get potash water. We then use this to extract cellulose fiber from reeds. Then we put the fibers under pressing and place it under the sun to dry. I hope the lack of sun and the extra wetting won't affect the final result. Fear not, it took some days but we have paper. The next quest requires a mixing bowl. It is made inside the forge at white hot temperature. However, it appears that our forge can't go above yellow-white. To fix that issue, we need to pump some air into the forge using some bellows. To make it, we start by baling some wood with creosote oil. And after some crafting, we are ready to start blowing. We fuel and start up again our forge. And then we boost it with our new machinery, which seems to work pretty well. However, it is useless to waste so much energy. We better wait off for the ceramic to reach yellow-white before doing the hard work. Once it gets there and starts stagnating at this temperature, we can fire it up all the way to bright white. And it seems to be working. Let's go all the way until we finally complete the task. And here we go. Next we shall build a bloomery to make our first iron. To use it, we start by filling the inside with charcoal. Then we put in even more charcoal. We throw in our raw iron-rich rocks. And then we add even more charcoal. That's a lot of trees. Next we fire it up. Since this process will take a lot of time, we shall go explore and do some questionable mining. Once our iron bloom is ready, we shall take it out of the bloomery. We heat it up in our forge, so that we can refine it inside an anvil. We then break it into smaller, workable pieces, which we can finally hammer down into wrought iron ingots. The first ingot shall be used to make a mortar, which we need to make coal dust. We mix the coal dust with saltpeter powder and flux to make black saltpeter, which we heat up into rough soda ash, which we ferment into rough caustic soda. We mix it with sand to obtain quartz mixture, and put it inside some ceramic bottles, which we heat up until the quartz melts into glass. Finally, once it cools down, we can carefully take out the glass bottles with a hammer. For the next task, we are going to use our quern to grind down some kaolinite and some graphite into powder. Then we mix these dusts with clay to obtain fire clay, and mold a crucible out of it. And we place it on top of our forge to melt down the iron scraps that couldn't fill a mold. With all of that iron we can make a cool stack and an anvil. Meanwhile, while we were so busy, we didn't notice that it's already autumn and the leaves are turning yellow. And it even snowed while we were working inside our shelter. But we managed to build a gilder. We can now fly to the mines.